Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Maximum Libertarian podcast, powered by the Roanoke Valley Libertarians. Today, we are joined by the Republican. And are you the nominee? Are you the official nominee down in Florida for Congress?
Not until August 18th. That's our primary.
August 18th. Okay. This is Jim Oberweis, and he's running down in Florida for Congress. What he's going to do is he's going to discuss about his platform, where Republicans and Libertarians might join together. I know there's issues where we might be apart, but I think for the most part, most people going into Congress, I've always felt they go into Congress wanting to do good, but once they get there, they get twisted up by the evil system that we call Washington, D.C. and the United States government.
The swamp.
Yes, the swamp. So tell us about yourself real quick.
Sure, thanks. Brian, I actually grew up in a dairy farming family. Our family put milk in glass bottles and delivered it to homes and made the richest ice cream in the world. So as a kid, I got to bale hay on the farm, and I got to scoop ice cream and make ice cream. But I had an older brother who went into that business, so I decided I better do something else. I actually became a stockbroker, and then a few years later started my own stockbrokerage firm and asset management business and family and mutual funds. And by the way, our fund business has grown from 0 to 5 billion under management today. And Morningstar, which ranks mutual funds, just published a report showing our microcap fund as one of the 5 best mutual funds in the entire country for the last 25 years. So that was very pleasant to see. I also served 2 terms in the Illinois State Senate before I came my common sense and moved here to Florida permanently. We've had a home in Bonita Springs, which is just north of Naples, for the last 16 years. And my wife's been a Florida resident for the last 16 years, but I've only officially been a Florida resident for 5 years.
Okay. What do you think your experience is running the family-founded dairy farm? How has that shaped your ideas for small businesses, regulations, things of that nature?
Yeah, well, as I say, I grew up in that business, but I didn't run that business. I went into the financial services area. So I do have a little experience, I guess, in both of those areas. But let me tell you, in the dairy business, you learn how to work hard, lots of long days. And when you start a new business, a new family mutual funds or a stockbroker, you're looking at 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and maybe half a day on Sunday. So I know what it's like to work hard. I've done it all my life, and done things that people told me were impossible. I lived in Aurora, Illinois, and people said, you can't start a mutual fund in Aurora, Illinois. You have to do it in New York or at least in Chicago. But we proved that if you work hard and you go at it intelligently, you can do a lot of things that people say you can't do.
What was your thoughts about last night? I know, but this isn't going to be your this isn't about your campaign. Last night was the State of the Union. What did you think of it? Let me just give you.
I loved one thing in particular, and that's when the president asked people to stand up if they felt that Congress should be putting the people of America ahead of illegal aliens. And all the Republicans got up, and none of the Democrats got up. And that was just crazy stuff.
It's strange times. I think it's turned into a comedy act, the State of the Union, because it seems like both sides will play. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Idiocracy, but during that, when the president gave his speech, everyone was screaming like we're at a wrestling match, or they're doing the let's not stand up for this, but we're going to stand up for that. And, and it's kind of, it's disheartening to see because it's all phony.
You're absolutely correct.
With the immigration thing, I was talking to a gentleman and the other day, and I said, immigration could have been fixed years ago. It should have been fixed years ago before I'm 50 years old. It should have been fixed before I was even voting, So, but I feel that sometimes people like to do, let's say, gun issues, immigration. They don't really want to fix the issue. They just want to use it as a fundraising technique.
Well, I will tell you that 20 years ago, I was warning about the problem of runaway illegal immigration. In fact, I recorded a commercial with me flying in a helicopter over Soldier Field, the Bears football stadium, saying enough people were entering this country illegally every week to fill every seat in Soldier Field. Well, let me tell you, the liberal press in Chicago went crazy with that. And I produced a study from a professor at the University of Michigan who estimated that between 3.2 million and 4.2 million people were entering the country illegally. And that was right in the target range that I had talked about. So then they had to change their approach, saying, well, Jim Oberweis must be biased or, something that can't be right. But obviously it was right. We were right on the numbers.
Right. And I mean, and even like with Minnesota, there's that should be something where everybody's like, hey, we got to stop the fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yes, for sure.
But instead, it seems like it's focused to you're attacking Somali immigrants. And I think throw that out the window. It's the fraud and abuse that we're seeing here that I think we should be attacking. And that should be joining in everybody. But it's weird how we're now in a system where we're not.
There's so many things like that where we should be able to work together, Republicans and Democrats, for the good of the country instead of just trying to pick silly fights. I mean, the SAVE Act, in my opinion, is a perfect example of what we're talking about. Everybody should be able to support that, for heaven's sakes, but it's become a political issue, and the Democrats just refuse to admit that there is voter fraud going on, and believe me, there is. Now, they'll argue, well, it's a small amount. Well, what is a small amount? 0.5% can sway many different elections. So, 0.25% or 0.5% is actually a fairly large number.
Right. And I can tell you there's, we had an issue up here in Virginia, and it was one of the mail-in ballots was counted after the election, and it was like only 1 or 2. So it really wasn't going to sway the election. But the problem is, if you have one incident where you see that happened, it taints everything. And now I question all was that the only time and it just got caught, And so in turn, I would love to see safe and fair elections,
Brian, let me just broaden your picture on this a little bit. I left out the part that in 2020, they asked me to run for Congress in Illinois against the incumbent Democrat. I did have the president's endorsement for that, but let me tell you what happened. And running for Congress as a conservative Republican against a liberal Democrat in Illinois is a chore. But as of election night, I had won by 1,500 votes. However, 3 days later, they decided to count a bunch of mail-in ballots that were never initialed by an election judge as required under Illinois law. That's when I decided I'm done with Illinois. I'm going to Florida to play pickleball and golf. Also, I mentioned one other thing. In that very race, on Facebook, one individual was proudly saying that he was a liberal. He couldn't stand conservative Oberweis, and he was going to. He lived in Wisconsin, had moved to Wisconsin a few years earlier from Illinois, but he was going to go back to his original Illinois precinct because they hadn't taken him off the rolls yet, and he was going to vote in Illinois in order to vote against me. We mentioned that to the election commission. You think they did anything? Nothing.
And so in turn, if I was a voter, I see that, I might be disenfranchised. Why am I even going to go out and vote? Because here in Roanoke, we have more people stay home in the past election. More people stay home than come out and vote. So in turn, that's really who I'm after. I'm after people that are disenfranchised. But I think you can't get them you can't make them believe in the system as long as it's tainted like it is. We have 45 days early voting and all this nonsense. It's just not. It's wild. So, Um, Now, which seat are you running in for Byron Donaldson? Is that the district
Yeah,
you'll be in? Okay.
yeah. It's Florida 19, and my Congressman Byron Donalds is running for governor, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be governor. Things are looking very good.
He's a very good. He's going to be a very very big candidate
Yeah,
or contender in the future. I really like Byron Donaldson
me
from
too.
everything I have seen. How are you doing in the polls? Because you're running against how many? 9? Did I see you're running against 9 people?
Depends on the day of the week. It could be
Okay.
anywhere from 5 or 6 to 9 or 10. Quite frankly, it's a very strange cast of characters. 2 of them recently got out of prison. One ran for Congress. He was actually a one-term congressman in North Carolina, and he lost his primary for a re-election for a second term because some, shall we say, embarrassing photos of him naked were out on the internet, and he had some not very nice things to say about some of his fellow congressmen in Washington. And I mean, it was just crazy stuff. And some of my other opponents have never really been involved in a political race, so I don't think they knew what they were getting into. But there is 1 or 2 other potential contenders that are serious contenders, but I think we're in good shape. Our only poll that we've seen, we didn't do a poll, but the one that I have seen had me as number 1. But you know, it was fairly close, and it was early. It was like 2 months ago, so I don't put much faith in that. But we're feeling pretty good. On our website, we have over 700 Republican endorsements. And by the way, our website, if anybody wants to take the time to take a look at it, and I wish you would, it's votejimo.com. Votejim with an O.com. And that gives our position on most of the major issues. And if our viewers take a look at that and they like what they see, we'd be glad to have you go ahead and add your endorsement to our list.
So, what did you think of Elon Musk and his the Doge cuts?
I love Elon Musk. And I've been hoping for government cuts for 50 years. And politicians talk about they're going to go in, they're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, that's just what everybody says, but it just doesn't seem to happen. And fortunately, I thought Musk was the one guy in the world that might have a chance of actually making something serious happen. And I'm not sure what happened. Maybe they went in too aggressively into some things and didn't quite approach it the right way. But I was very disappointed when that fell apart. I'm hopeful that some of the people in place will have an opportunity to still make some significant cuts. But the problem is congressmen, when they're elected, like to tell their constituents, "Oh, I got 200 million for this, and I got 500 million for this," and it's all about how much money can you bring home. And I will tell you, my number one, I had no intention of running for this congressional seat. The reason I am running is in the first week after Byron Donalds announced that he was going to run for governor, I literally had 8 or 9 people come up to me and say, "Jim, please run for this open seat. We need your financial background, your financial experience, and your economic understanding in Washington. We have," well, at the time, they said a $36 trillion national debt. Today, it's over $37 trillion, and it's growing at an unsustainable rate. It has to stop. And I have some serious plans of how we might be able to begin to get control of that. Would you like to hear one?
Oh, absolutely.
First thing I would try to insist on or try to get support on is it's Congress's duty, it's a job to pass a budget, right? Except they haven't done it for a decade or more. Excuse me. So if Congress would pass a budget, or if they don't pass a budget, they shouldn't get paid. No pay, no budget, no pay. And no retroactive either. If you don't pass it for a month, you've lost a month. If you don't pass it for 3 months, you've lost 3 months. You're not going to get it back. If we had that kind of a procedure, believe me, Congress would pass a budget because they all want to get paid. And if they pass a budget, that would mean no more continuing resolutions and no more government shutdowns. So that's 2 wins in a row right there.
I like the fact.
Furthermore, I think the budget should be a balanced budget in any year, except in times of war or possibly recession.
Okay. I like the fact that you added the no retroactive pay, because as long as you have that retroactive pay, they'll
Right,
still drag their feet. But you take
right,
that away, and that changes the game. Um,
exactly. And by the way, I thought that I came up with this idea that I started talking about it a couple months ago. I thought it was, kind of my idea. And then I got a call from Senator Rick Scott, who said, you know what? I just recently filed a bill to do exactly that. It's called No Budget, No Pay. And I thought, wow, great minds think alike.
this is a very good bill. Then what about the taking the budget and breaking it into pieces? I know several, like Rand Paul, Thomas Massey. You instead of having one big omnibus bill, you're going to have what is it, 9 different sections of the budget, and you
Appropriations,
pass. Yes, appropriate, correct. And then that way you won't be voting. Now, do you support things like that?
I'm willing to look at that, but it seems to me that if you want to force people to get together, and you can force them if they're not going to get paid, maybe putting into one bill is the best way to go. But you still have the appropriations process. Just because you pass the budget doesn't mean everything's over. You still have to appropriate the money.
Okay. What would be your ideas with some of the entitlement programs? Some of the, such as Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. I know people, that's a hot button issue, and Social Security is a Ponzi scheme from what I can tell. I don't look at it and go, wow. But at the same time, we can't go, let's just cut it and let's kill it, because I understand there's a lot of older folks that are dependent on it. But my niece, who is just starting the workforce, why am I going to make her get into a system that's broken? You know what I'm saying? So what would be your idea for things like that?
When Social Security started, the average life expectancy was 65 years. Now it's about 80. So it's no wonder the system is broken. I think there are a couple things you can do. You can continue with it as it's sort of like an annuity program. But to do that, you're going to have to change the retirement age, or you're going to have to change the amount that people pay into the system and increase that significantly. The alternative, and I think the president is starting to look at it and talk about it, is something that you're describing, some type of a private system where people can invest their money in like an IRA type account. And I'm not sure of all the details, but I think the president was proposing something like if an young individual puts 1,000 in, or when they're born or something like that, that the government would give a match of some sort, and people could continue to contribute to that, so that because of the compounding over time, that could be a very large amount of money by the time the person is 65 or 70 years old and ready to retire.
Right. What's the federal, what branch, not branches, what agencies within the federal government have you looked at that you would like to shrink or just eliminate altogether?
Well, the Department of Education seems to be the one that everybody is willing to get rid of as soon as possible, and that probably makes sense to let states determine their own education system. So that would be one. I also think that some of the agencies have just gotten way too bureaucratic, way too big, and we need to cut them back. And I think the president is trying to take some steps in that direction. I'm very pleased to see that.
Do you think his tariff plan was good? What was your? I don't have an issue with the tariffs. My biggest issue with tariffs is you're still taking taxes out of, so it's almost like you're double dipping. I get that when people say, "Oh, tariffs are like it's a tax on the American public." Yeah, I get it. Everything gets pushed back to the consumer. But at the same time, if you still got the tax, so you're paying a tariff tax and you're paying, quote unquote, and then also regular tax. What would you do with there? But I also don't have an issue about like, hey, let's bring some things back to the states for our workers.
I'm essentially a free trader. I wish that there were no tariffs anywhere and no trade challenges or restrictions anywhere. If we had total free markets everywhere, that would be the best thing in the world for the country. So I was disappointed when the president started to talk about tariffs. However, having said that, The result was better than I anticipated in that he used tariffs as a tool to get concessions from other countries to open up and reduce some of their restrictions on our goods. Just some crazy things, as I said, having been in the dairy business, you become familiar with some of those things. And we learned that, a dairy farmer in northern Wisconsin or northern Minnesota couldn't sell their milk to Canadians. I mean, is this crazy? Because Canada prohibit the transportation of milk across the border. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. So the president has been able to use the tariffs to reduce some of those restrictions from other countries. Having said all that, I'm still nervous and concerned. Of course, the Supreme Court is expressing some challenges or difficulties with the tariff situation as well. So ideally, no tariffs. It's not ideal. So we have to use the tariffs in the most effective way that we possibly can to get the best results for people in America.
Right. What's the role the federal government should play in addressing inflation and rising costs for groceries, dairy products, and things of that nature? What do you think the government should be doing?
My first reaction is nothing. The government ought to stay out of it. Let the free market determine the price of goods and services. And one thing the government has tended to do that is very bad in that regard is print more money. The classic definition of inflation is more money or more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. We, as a government and as a Federal Reserve, should be helping to promote an increase in our economy, an increase in the production of goods, not an increase in the number of dollars circulating. I would be very happy to see, and I'm hopeful that our new Federal Reserve Chairman, I've met him once, heard a lecture from him, and I was pretty impressed at that time, last year, as a matter of fact, and I'm hopeful that he will follow through on his principles, which would be to reduce the impact, reduce the money reserves that the Federal Reserve controls. In other words, to reduce their overall impact in the economy, and I think that would be very good.
What is your thoughts about cryptocurrency? I know that's becoming a hot button thing. And people always like, what's Bitcoin? They'll ask me, what's Bitcoin? I'm like, I don't know. It's made up, but so is the US dollar now because it's not backed by anything. So what is your thought about crypto? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Two things. 40 years ago, I read a book that had been written, 50 or 100 years before that, called Extraordinary and Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it talked about tulip bulb mania and some of the other crazy things that have gone on. And let me tell you, the whole Bitcoin thing reminds me a lot of that. So I'm not an expert on that. That's an area of finance that I've stayed away from. If you don't understand it, you probably shouldn't invest in it. So I have never invested in it. I'm very concerned about it, concerned that it looks like a Ponzi scheme in many ways. There is no real value. And you just said there's no real backing for the US dollar. That's not quite true. It's true that there's no longer gold backing or silver backing as there used to be. But there is still a good faith of our federal government, which hopefully is worth something, which you're certainly not getting with cryptocurrency. I'm also worried about the potential, particularly with AI, to be able to figure out ways to hack some of the accounts for cryptocurrency and create real crazy distortion. So for me, I'm staying away from it.
Right. Well, the only reason I'm asking that is because it's like so many other things with technology. The genie's out of the bottle, or the toothpaste is out of the tube, I guess. So you want to try to get ahead of things. Like with AI, data centers, things of that nature. We can paint a bad picture out of everything, but reality is it's going to be there. So in turn, I want to make sure that we're on the front side of it and not behind, letting someone who dislikes us, they might be making the adjustments and changes, and we can't catch up now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, what is when it comes? I know you talked about immigration a little bit. What would be your ideal immigration policy that you would like to see done?
I think we need to have a national discussion on how many immigrants we want to have coming to the country, and do we want people who are intent on becoming citizens, or do we want more H-1B visas or H-2B visas, or we want temporary workers? What do we want? And then continue to enforce the law. And the president is obviously making major improvements in reducing those people coming across the border illegally. Now, one way to really solve the problem, I think, is to end all government funds to illegal aliens. Stop the SNAP benefits that they can get. Stop housing allowances that they can get. Stop medical benefits that they can get, except in the case of an emergency. Emergency is a different matter, in my opinion. I'm a real emergency, not, oh, I cut my finger. That's not what I'm talking about. And even possibly educational expenses. This, again, would be a huge savings that would help us to balance our budget. And it would take away the economic incentive for people who want to come here illegally. So they'd start to follow our system to apply as they're supposed to do.
Correct. I totally agree with you there on most of what you said there.
Am I going to be an honorary libertarian now?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, if you want to be.
I do.
No, I mean I'm in agreement. So I just would like. I'm not an open borders kind of guy. I don't understand. I've never understood the concept of open borders. I've watched illegals at a place that I worked, and we had a union there. They worked them like, I mean, well, all the workers got worked hard, but I know that when the illegals, the head of the place was like, well, who are they going to complain to? I'll work them as hard as I want, you know. And I thought that's kind of strange talking like that. Let me
add one other point there.
Yes,
another
sir.
thing that we need to do. There are some companies out there who will hire illegals in order to get a competitive advantage in the marketplace, just like you were talking about. They work them harder, they don't pay as much or whatever. And I think that's wrong. We should, that's one thing I think government has a role. We should make sure that companies are not hiring illegal aliens, and we can do that. We should require them to all use E-Verify, which will let the company know right away if they're legal or not. And if companies continue to hire them anyhow, companies should be fined for doing that. And the more they do it, the larger the fine should be.
I know a lot of people say that that what the immigration enforcement really should be to go after businesses before going after the individuals, because they're the ones baiting hey, come on over, we'll pay you, we're going to do this. And so in turn, if you
got it.
You stop it, that's where you can go.
Take away the economic incentives and things will work out just fine.
Right. So what about, I served 6 years in the military. When I came out, 2000, 2006, I come out, I was a former Republican. And then when I came out, I started to look at the foreign policy. That was one of my issues about going, we have a lot of people, left and right, that love going to war because they don't have to go to war. What's your foreign policy? What's the things that you would like to see changed that you've seen? I know there's a lot of saber rattling with Iran. Well, we can go down the list of, from that to now, I know the flavor of the month has now gone away, which was Gaza and Israel. And it's like, come on, but what's your foreign policy going to look like? What would be your foreign policy?
I'm very concerned about committing American lives, American military men to areas of conflict like that. Having said that, what the president was able to do in Venezuela was absolutely amazing. I was stunned. I mean, they really showed the ability of the U.S. military, and the successes was fantastic. And certainly what we did in Iran to knock out their nuclear capability was significant as well. But as a general principle, I'd be very reluctant to get involved in a ground war. Now,
should it go back to Congress?
It's necessary, and I tell you, I would be very inclined to continue to help Ukraine to fight Russia, to give them some stronger weapons where they could reach Moscow or reach other major parts of Russia. And I think that's the only way you're going to turn off Putin, is if he starts to get worried. As long as he can just put people out there in Ukraine losing lives, and you don't have to worry about the motherland of Russia, he's going to continue to keep on going. So I think we need to provide support with long-range missiles in Ukraine.
What?
But not
Say again?
I said, but not military, not men, not our armed forces.
Right. That's where free trade would be nice, because as long as you're, I remember someone said, as long as you're trading with someone, they're going to be less likely to want to fight you, because we're having a mutual benefit from each other. I just see some of the stuff, and I really like Trump's first term on foreign policy. The second one has been a little bit more confusing. One of the things that I was talking to a guy here in Roanoke about, it seems like he fights the Republican Party as much as the Democrat Party. And the worst thing is, the Democrats will rally around, I don't care who it is. I remember them rallying around, if it's Bill Clinton when he got impeached.
Or Biden. How about Biden, for heaven's sakes?
Or yes, Biden. They rallied around Biden until it was time to cut the rope and let him just wander off into the sea. And it was what do you think's going on with the Republican Party on that issue? Why aren't they not rallying around? Because there's some things that Trump does. Yeah, I get it. It's a little wonky. It might go a little sideways, but there's some things that he's not. I tell people all the time, he's not the devil. He's not you want to paint him as the Nazi and Hitler and da-da-da-da. He's not. He's the same guy that he's always been. So what do you think's the issue with the Republican Party not supporting or rallying around their own president?
Well,
is it because he came from the outside?
I differ with you. I think the Republican Party has been extraordinarily supportive of the president. The House and the Senate really have not stood up to him in some areas and some issues where maybe they should have. So I can't accept your basic premise that they haven't supported him. Now, lately, I think there's been a little bit of separation, a little bit of difference. But I mean, when Ronald Reagan was president, Ronald Reagan was my hero. There were some Republicans who differed with him on certain policies at that time. And I think that's fair. I think Congress has a right to express and follow their own guidance and their own beliefs. I like the words of Ronald Reagan. It was something effective. If you agree with me on 80% of the issues, you're my 80% friend, not my 20% enemy.
Right. Well, I'll give you an example of as like we were talking about earlier, Doge. There was a lot of things in Doge that Congress could have pushed through, but it seemed like they just let it wander off. And then if, Mitch McConnell has not been you hear a lot of like he says this to the president, and it don't seem like, if I don't want to just see Trump write executive orders. I want to see laws get passed. Does that make sense? And that's what I'm wanting to see.
Yeah,
because I don't want to see because the next president is going to come in 2028. Who knows who's going to be? They just swipe of the pen, and then, well, here we go. And God knows, we get another Biden in there, which I easily see that happening.
Yeah,
sadly as that may be.
I'm with you 100%, but I think, unfortunately, the president has chosen to not try to get laws passed through Congress. He's much more inclined to just do it now, right? Here's the executive order, go do it.
Right. Well, I would just like to see some laws get pushed through, just so that makes it not. I don't want to just see that one whoop, and
You are 100% correct. I agree with you 100%.
is there anything that you think that Congress could do? I think we got the 25th Amendment, but no one, if you don't enforce it, like with Biden, if you get another Biden come in, how is there anything that he really bothered me, because you could tell he had his mental faculties was out.
Yes. Yes.
You know, his facial features, the way he would wander, his speech. What are some things? What would you do with Congress? Is there anything besides the 25th Amendment, or would you just like, well, we're going to just have to ride it out till it's over?
Well, I'm not sure what you're really asking. What specific issue are you talking about?
So in case if you get someone like Biden who starts going, people are going, hey, this guy's not right.
Yeah. I mean, the law is there.
I guess if you don't use it, then it's not going to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it was such a Biden was such a disappointment, and it bothers me with as much as he did, and with like the auto pen. I think he makes me laugh. He came to the Libertarian National Convention in 2024, and I mean he's a great speaker. Every president that I've ever seen has always been a great speaker, and that's why it always stinks. Something smells funny because Biden was not the great speaker that you can go, and I don't care if you like him or not. If it's Obama, Clinton, Bush, Trump, they all good speakers. But boy, Biden was
a great one. Reagan was a great one. Biden never was.
No, even in his heyday, I don't think he was that good. I mean, he obviously he talked better, but especially when he was president.
He had a reputation for saying the wrong things, and the people got so used to it. They said, "Oh, that's just Biden."
Yeah, that's wild. You've run multiple times in Illinois. Now you're in Florida. How has your political philosophy evolved over the years? Have you felt like you've changed?
No, I really don't. I mean, as I said, I was a Reagan supporter. Thought he was the greatest president we ever had. I really liked the job that he did. And by the way, he was a guy who tried to bring the two sides together. And that's, I think, the right thing to do. And they used to talk about him fighting tooth and nail during the day with Tip O'Neill, but then at night going out and having a drink with the guy. And I think that's the way government ought to be. That's the way Congress should be run. That is the kind of attitude that I will take to Washington with me.
Do you feel that it's internet? The internet has now changed it where people can't be like that?
No, I really don't. I understand what you're saying, because there's so much comments on the internet, and so much people say some things in there that frequently are not justifiable or not fact-based, that people start to believe that. But we're still humans, we're still people, and I will try to work together on a one-on-one basis to convince people of my beliefs to the best degree I can.
So once the MAGA movement, which I don't understand, I don't have an issue with MAGA movement. When it's over, who do you think is going to replace it? Where does it go from there? Because Trump is that movement. How do you think the Republican, if it's the Republicans, or is it going to evolve into something other than that, or will it continue?
They always do. I mean, movements like that do change over a period of time. A lot of it will depend on who the next president is. I think J.D. Vance would be a good guy to carry it on. I also like Marco Rubio, but in any event, they're going to have a little different input, and things will change.
What is there something that you work with that you go, the Democrats do, that I know my Republican colleagues, that you want to help the Democrats do? And I know this sounds like a silly question, but sometimes, when you work across the aisle, sometimes you might say, hey, I like something that they're doing over here, but I want to help perform it form it so it's a better thing.
Yes.
Is there anything?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'll give you a perfect example. And that is how we continue to keep control of our illegal alien population. I believe that, I think ICE probably overreacted a little bit in Minnesota, which was prodded on by the demonstrators on the other side. They're both sides at fault. But the right solution would be to end this whole sanctuary city or sanctuary state nonsense. Every state should agree that if they arrest somebody or have somebody in custody who has a record, a criminal record of doing other bad things in the United States, they should definitely turn those people over to ICE. In return for that, if that's happening, then we've got a situation where ICE could focus on those criminals and not focus on being in the streets every day to try to go to, I don't care, to Walmart or Home Depot or something to try to find illegal aliens who aren't doing other things. As I said, if we do that, where ICE focuses on getting the worst, and that's what the president had talked about at the beginning, focus on getting the criminals out of here, and then let the economic incentives, by taking away those economic benefits of people coming here illegally, the situation is going to continue to get better and better over a period of time.
What would you do with the kids of the illegals? Because there's like, my niece went to school with one of her best friends is her mom is still, and which boggles my mind. Like 20 plus years now, you're telling me that she is still just like, she didn't go down and make the proper adjustments. What would you do with that? First
of all, there should never be birthright citizenship for people in this country illegally. There are cartels that have made a business out of transporting pregnant women across the border when they're 8 months pregnant so that they can have their baby in the United States. The baby becomes a U.S. citizen, and then the mother says, well, I have to stay here to take care of my baby. And that is just fundamentally wrong. We need to stop that. We need to stop that by ending birthright citizenship for people born in this country of illegal aliens, or people who shouldn't be in the country legally, so that we wouldn't continue getting situations like what you're talking about. Now, when you say, okay, but this happened 20 years ago, what do we do now? That's much tougher. I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I'm inclined to say we cut off the benefits to the illegal alien parent. No more taxpayer-funded benefits, but other than that, if they're not committing any other crimes, they're not doing anything wrong, I'm willing to listen to suggestions.
Right, because I think that's always been like, it's funny that the Democrats are so hell-bent on protecting even the criminal illegals.
That's crazy.
Now, the ones with the children and who have been just working, the mom I know has been working and stuff like that, but still, be it here or there, it's like she hasn't been committing a crime. That one's where I go, that one becomes difficult, even for myself.
I'm with you 100%, yes.
But the Democrats are, I remember someone said that they said if Ronald Reagan ran for Republican nominee today, he wouldn't get the nomination. I always think the Democrats, I mean, it's like John F. Kennedy. If he was to run, he wouldn't get the nomination. The Democrats especially have went very far to a like cuckoo land to me. I don't get it. But
Brian, you and I are seeming to agree on everything. There has to be an issue or two that we disagree on. What do you think we disagree on?
Well, I think we disagreed with Congress not doing enough for President Trump, because I'm not a big supporter of. I think he should be passing don't just do an executive order. I want to see some laws get passed. I want to see some things get done. I love Doge. I think Elon Musk did an excellent job there. But I was talking.
Disagreeing on that. I agree with you. Congress should pass those things.
Oh yes, we agreed with them passing it. But I think you didn't think they were doing it. I said that they weren't doing. They were working against the president, and you said they were. I think that's where we disagreed with them. So
okay.
But that's okay. But I don't have my love for like Lindsey Graham or Mitch McConnell or things of that nature. What about term limits? I think one thing I would love to see is
absolutely. That's one of the things I have campaigned on for 20 years. And fortunately, I live in Florida. We have term limits in Florida of 8 years, and it works great. we should have term limits of 8 years in Congress as well. The president is limited to 8 years. Congress should too. And if you do that, you're going to attract a different type of candidate. You're going to attract candidates who are there to serve, not candidates who are there for a new career. And
would you have them not get like a pension? Because I know that's one thing that people always, they're going to get a pension. They've served so many years, they get a pension. Would you get rid of the pension too? So you go to serve, you serve.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something, Brian. In Illinois, if you serve in the state legislature for 8 years, you are entitled to full pension and full medical benefits for the rest of your life. Now, I served 8 years in the Illinois Senate. I refuse those benefits. I refuse the medical benefits. I refuse the pension, period. End of discussion, because I think it is fundamentally wrong. I put my money where my mouth is.
That's good. The one thing that Trump has done this term, and I really thought he did an excellent job, is he started bringing in, he really was. He brought in Tulsi Gabbard. He brought in, probably my favorite thing he's done is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with MAHA. I really think that was one of the best moves he did. If Kennedy was running as the candidate, there's a lot of things that I didn't like on his with John F. Kennedy. Now, as the health, I think it's fine. What have you thought of the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. experiment here?
To be honest with you, I think the question isn't decided yet. I want to wait. I have mixed feelings on the whole, vaccination thing. Should kids be vaccinated or not? I understand as a parent, I would like to make that decision, not have the government make the decision. But the fact is, the right decision for an individual is don't get vaccinated. But if everybody doesn't get vaccinated, you've got some pretty serious potential health problems. So to me, that's a tough situation, and I don't have a good answer.
Right. But what about like the stuff he's doing with like the red dye and removal of that? Is that something that you don't like? Because I know like some foreign countries over in Europe, we'll just say, their cereal, their oatmeal is completely different than what's in ours.
Yeah.
How do you think because I know you're with the milk, but where do you stand there on that stuff like that, or do you still up in the air?
Yeah, I'm not a scientist. I guess I would have to look at individual situations and see where the science comes out. Sometimes I think there are movements to an extreme to prohibit this or that maybe is not a problem. On the other hand, I'm sure Europe has looked at the science too, and things like the red dye and some other add-ons. It probably is a good thing to not have those.
Right. What would be the one thing that you looked at the president that he's done for the second term that you're like, have you said, I wish he would have done something a little bit different, or maybe he didn't do that? Is there anything that you looked at or he's done that you think about like that?
Getting rid of the whole woke stuff is probably one of the best things that he's done. It's changed the whole direction of the country, and I'm very, very pleased to have that movement.
Yeah, I was glad to see you get done that. Now, is there anything that what I've never been a big person with. I've never cared too much about. I know a lot of people don't like his way he speaks.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish he would be a little more tactful. But
I agree.
You know what? I really don't have an issue because we're now. I think the country's still half full, but it can easily tip over, and we're going to be completely empty if we don't start fixing some issues.
I have two daughters. I have 5 kids. 2 of my daughters live in California, and we cannot discuss politics. We just can't, because they're subject to the anti-Trump syndrome. I mean, it's just anytime you raise the word Trump, they just go nuts. So I try just to not talk about it. I know that I can't convince them of the good things that he's doing, and
Yeah.
some of the things that I don't like, I'm already aware of. So there's no sense having them talk to me about that.
So out of your 5 kids, 2 of them are anti-Trump. The other 3 are okay with Trump.
I don't think any of them are excited about Trump. I'm just the 2 in California might be the worst, but maybe I didn't do a good enough job as a father bringing them up, because
yeah, that's what it is. What, boy? Because California is well, Virginia is in a real state right now because they're wanting to mimic California like it, and it's heartbreaking because, like I said, how are you going to reach the disenfranchised voter? I know we spoke about them earlier, because you need to get to those folks and get them active, making them aware. Because I think a lot of times people just go, look, I just want to go to work. I want to come home, do the family thing. And I get it. Politics suck. But how do you reach them? What have you thought about reaching them?
Well, there are some particular issues here in Florida that I think get widespread interest in. I've been a member of the Everglades Trust for several years, and I continue to work on trying to make sure that we have a good supply of fresh, clean water moving into Southwest Florida, because 30, 40 years ago, the Army Corps of Engineers allowed certain projects to happen that really stopped the flow, the natural flow through the Everglades. And the Everglades tend to clean up water as it moves south, going through mangroves. So the ecosystem was kind of damaged or changed, and we're now making major efforts to bring that back. But it's a long process. We've been working on it now for about 10 years, and it's going to take several years more. And it has had some federal government money support to make this happen too. But that's certainly an issue that's clearly important. The other issue that's certainly important in our area is making sure that we have enough infrastructure to serve the needs of the people. You know, Florida's getting, I forget the number, but it's like 1,000 people a day moving into Florida from other states. That takes a lot more highways. It takes a lot more infrastructure all the way across the board. And I think everybody is interested in that, regardless of their economic background.
Why do you think so many people move from New York, California? They'll move because of the high taxes, the regulations, so forth. They move into Florida and then they start voting for the exact same thing. If you ever thought about why would they be running from it, but then continue on taking the abuse, wanting the abuse again?
Obviously, a lot of people are leaving other states to come to Florida for the no income tax policy, for the weather, which is pretty good most of the year. And I know your premise is that they come from New York and they're Democrats, they come down to Florida, they're Democrats. But I will tell you, I can remember, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Florida was a swing state. I remember George Bush's election. I was hanging by hanging by threads for Florida. But ever since DeSantis has been in there, it's been very strongly Republican. So I think the premise that a bunch of Democrats are moving in here and bringing their philosophy with them probably wouldn't stand the test of that time.
Well, I hope so, because I always worry about, so many people are moving and they hate what's going on in their country or in their state, and then they want to move to bring the same nonsense to another state that's doing well.
And there certainly are a number of people like that, but it's not the majority.
But well, that's good to hear. All right, final question. What is something that I did not ask you that you want the people to know about you?
Well, I'm a philanthropist also. I started 30 years ago the Oberweis Foundation, putting some small amounts of my money into a fund to build up to be able to help conservative causes and people truly in need. people like food banks, for instance, or healthcare centers, things of that nature. And I'm very proud to say that well, I've added a little more. The market's been very good, and we've picked some pretty good investments in there. Today, we're at a size that we're literally providing grants of about $200,000 a year to conservative organizations and to people in need. And I'm very proud of that. I feel like I'm a three-pronged candidate. I'm a very successful entrepreneur. I'm a very successful philanthropist, and I'm an experienced legislator. So how could anybody not vote for me? I just don't understand.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time. If you want to learn more about his campaign and about Jim, please go to votejim.com.
And if they happen to have an extra $10 or $20 that they're willing to give up, you can donate right online, and I would really, really appreciate it very much.
There you go. Donate to Jim O. And thank you so much for coming on. And good luck in the primary, August 18th. Do y'all have early voting?
Yes, but short period of time, yes.
Okay, short term. So vote when you can, or vote on August 18th for Jim Oberweis. So until next time, my friends, have a good night.